Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for attending the workshop. My name is accurate. My location is accurate. We are very particular down in the downtown St. Pete area about not being confused with St. Pete Toastmasters. It's really just because when you're in St. Petersburg, people are very picky. I mean, that's why you live up here, right? Tonight's objective is to talk about evaluations. And we're not just trying to talk about evaluations. We're trying to change our mindset about how evaluations work. Can I open this door?
Yeah. Okay.
That's opportunity knocking right there. Well, what I have discovered in my time with Toastmasters, which has been short, is that there is a very clear gap between speaking and evaluating. People are courageous about speaking. They get up here when they're nervous, they get up here when they're scared, they talk about things that make them feel vulnerable. But when it's time to evaluate, the fear and the concern about hurting someone else's feelings, or about sounding like you're talking about something you don't know anything about, all of those hesitations start to take root. So I'm curious, why is it that speakers, which we're all here to be, are so confident about trying, but once we put on the evaluator hat, that confidence starts to wane? I had the opportunity to win the district this year in the evaluation competition. And in that process, what I discovered is that every step of the way I was coached past my own fear, coached past my own limitations, my own hesitance. So I want to take this time now to encourage all of you to learn from the same coaching that I learned from. Because I don't want to win the evaluation contest next year. There are better evaluators out there. We just need to get them to find their voice and try to compete. That's the objective. Change our mind, change our culture about evaluating. I have a handout that should be on everybody's seat, or even better, in your hands right now. And it's the recipe for how I evaluate. It doesn't have to be the recipe for how you evaluate, but I want to give you the opportunity to see how I do it so you can change it. You can fine-tune it to fit your needs. The first bullet that I want to flag is what a speech evaluation is supposed to be. I'm not going to read this worksheet to you, but I do want to highlight the very first bullet. A speech evaluation is honest, constructive feedback. If it's not honest, it's the same as being not constructive. And if it's not constructive, then it's no evaluation at all. Too often we drop the honest part, or we drop the critical part, which means we give up on the constructive part. There's only three ways to evaluate. You either leave somebody with a positive evaluation, a negative evaluation, or a neutral. And neutral is nothing. Neutral doesn't help anybody, negative doesn't help anybody, which means there's only one option to help, and that option is positive. Positive, constructive, honest feedback. So how do we get there? I want to introduce to you the idea of a constructive mindset before you evaluate. I have on the sheet what I call a focus grid. These are some of the words to help prep your mind for where you want to be before you start to critically listen to a speaker. Think about challenging the speaker. Think about being creative. Think about being honest. If you're thinking about, I don't know what I'm going to say, I don't know if I'm going to remember good, bad, good, I don't know if I'm going to be able to speak for 3 minutes. If you're thinking that way, you're immediately undermining your own ability to give a constructive evaluation. So use that grid to help put you in the right mindset. From there, we need to focus on constructive content. Constructive content is important, but let me define it even further. Recommendations and suggestions for improvement. Constructive content is not just telling the person you liked their speech and that they have great gestures and that they made you laugh. That is content, but it's not necessarily constructive. A speaker has to be able to walk knowing what they can do to improve. That is how you construct. If you simply look at a house and see its problems and then walk away from the house, you're not constructing anything. It's when you put a new layer of paint on, it's when you mow the lawn that you're constructing something better. The third piece of an evaluation is format. Format is where Toastmasters get hung up the most. I can't help but find it comical, right? Who here knows good, bad, good? Raise your hand if you know good, bad, good. Good, bad, good. Is that really all the people that know it, or do you just not want to raise your hand? All right, perfect. Who knows I think, or excuse me, I heard, I saw, I felt. Who uses that format? A few people. Who's heard of good, better, best? A few hands. So this is interesting to me, right? Of those who have heard of good, better, best, who uses it? Also interesting. So for those of you who are looking at me, nobody raised their hand for who uses good, better, best. Rather than worry about methodology, good, bad, good, I hear, I see, I feel, you can tell how often I use that one. I want to promote all of you on the idea of good, better, best. And there's a number of reasons why, right? Good, better, best, when you approach an evaluation from that perspective, what you're doing is starting from a place that is positive, introducing a concept that is constructive, and then launching with what the speaker does best. Imagine yourselves in your work life. If your boss came up to you and said, "You're a hard worker, I hope that you can come in on time from now on, but you're the most creative person on the team." Is that going to make you feel good? That might make you feel good enough to actually start coming in on time. Because they're bookending their constructive criticism, not just with good things, but with the good and the best. It's a launching pad. For those of you who have competed in evaluations, you know that one of the criteria for evaluations, which I have very conveniently put on the second page, involves a technique that asks you to motivate the speaker. The goal of every evaluation is to have the speaker, to leave the speaker wanting to do what? Come back. Come back and speak again. The only real way to lose as an evaluator is if you shut a speaker down and they don't ever want to speak again. If you've done anything other than that, it's a win. We want to take the idea of a win and we want to make it even better, because we want to be so good at evaluating that people ask us to evaluate them. We want to pick them up so that they not only improve, but so that everyone who witnesses the evaluation improves as well. That is the goal. You can do that with this good, better, best approach. I'm going to dig into it deeper here. Good. When you listen to a speaker, immediately you pick up on the good. It takes just a few seconds. They have good vocal variety. You like their presence on the stage. You like their hand gestures. You see that they have props. Good is very easy to observe. And that's important, because you don't want to spend your time watching the good. You want to spend your time analyzing what needs to be improved. If you're writing notes about all the good things they're doing, chances are you are missing the areas where they can be improving. So find your good. Recognize that they're good right away, and then let it go. Write down a few notes, lock it in your mind. You know they're good at it. Listen to their speech constructively so that when the time comes to tell them what they can do better, you have real meat, solid examples, references in their own speech that you can call back to. Because if you want a speaker to understand what you saw, you have to recreate the speech for them. You can't tell them, there was this place in the middle where you looked at the ceiling and I didn't really know what you were saying. They have no idea how to reference that. But if you tell them your second point where you told us the story about your mother and her dog, you looked at the ceiling and it looked like you forgot where you were, they will understand. So we have to be specific. The only way we can be specific is if we pay attention critically to the entire speech. That's where better comes in. Now, better has a second twist to it too. You want to give constructive feedback that is meaningful. So if you're critiquing them on what they're wearing, or if you're on their hand gestures or their use of the word or ah, you are being minimally constructive. You are telling them something, but you're not necessarily maximizing your impact to that speaker. To maximize your impact, you want to look deeper. You want to look critically, analytically at exactly what they're saying and doing. Think organization. Could they have organized their speech better? Think delivery. Did they speak forcefully when they had to get a point across? Did they act in a thematic way to help draw you in? Did they lift your emotions and raise and lower your emotions along the way? Those are real pieces of feedback that will help a speaker not only refine the current speech, but refine future speeches. That better piece is the core of an evaluation. And interestingly enough, that core will only take you 30 to 45 seconds to communicate because you only have 3 minutes. Good is easy. Better, you have to pay attention. Best. Best is the part of the speech where you see natural talent in the speaker. It's the part where you see how hard they worked to research and to rehearse their speech. Best is the thing that they did well because you saw them endeavoring to do it well. It's how you get them to want to speak again because they see that you saw how hard they worked. They see that you cared enough to pay attention. Good, better, best. Good builds a relationship. It lets them know you trust them. Better shows that you care by investing your time and your attention in the speaker. And best is what you give them on the way out the door so that they will come back and sign up again. They know they have talent. They know they have opportunity in Toastmasters. The last part is constructive delivery. This is the easiest part for all of us because delivering an evaluation is very much like delivering a speech. Delivery is similar, but the purpose behind the two is very different. Delivery means eye contact. It means direct communications, vocal variety, clear language, concise usage. That's delivery. Purpose is different. The purpose of a speech is to communicate a message to an audience that is a passive listening group. An evaluation, the purpose of an evaluation is to have a personal feedback session with one speaker in a public forum. It's important to understand the difference. Your evaluation is directed to one person and one person only. If you think that you're giving a speech and you have to entertain the audience, you're missing the point. You have to give it to one person. Look at that one person. Tell them what mattered to you. Let them know what they could do better to improve their speech. If you're giving a comedic speech during your evaluation, you're not adding value to the speaker. Evaluations should equate to value. You want to come down off of your evaluation knowing that you delivered value to your speaker. It's a lot of information. That's why I wrote it down. Again, you don't have to agree. You don't have to adopt any of this. It's just there if you want a different perspective or a new perspective from what you've seen. Now, the last page is my cheat sheet. This is how I personally evaluate. Now, here's why this is important. This workshop is supposed to be 50 minutes, but you only have to listen to me for another maybe 3. Because for the next 25 minutes, we're going to be listening to speakers and evaluating them. We will also be evaluating the evaluators of those speeches. And we will be doing it all with no notes and no time to prepare. And it's not because notes are a crutch. I'll tell you exactly why I don't like notes or why I support the idea of experimenting without them. The technique that I have on this paper is designed to help connect you to the speaker. We start with thanks. You thank the speaker for their speech. You thank them for the lesson that they just taught you. Show them that you listened. Show them that it meant something. And you connect. It's called rapport in some places. Once you have that, you have a little word called trust. When you have trust, people are receptive to what you have to say next. From your thanks, you go into your hook. Everybody knows a hook is important. A hook is how you get somebody's attention and you keep their attention. If you don't have a hook, you might have a speaker looking at you and their mind is somewhere else on what they're going to do after the speech is over, on what they're going to do when they get home, how hungry they are, right? You have to hook your speaker. And if you're really good, your hook will actually capture the audience too, because they'll realize something is happening. From your hook, you go into your good, better, best. What I call here, strengths, improvements, and praise. That's the pattern that we just talked about. Good, better, best. Build that person up and be the launching pad for them to go off and want to speak again. Strengths, natural strengths. Improvements, what can they improve? And praise. Praise them for a job well done. Praise them for the things that really stood out. From there, you want to go into a summary. Summaries are critically important. Why? Because you just told that employee that they're the most creative employee on your team. Their mind, there's fireworks going off. They're celebrating. They're so excited. They forgot the first 2 things you said because they're the most creative employee on the team. You just told the speaker how naturally talented they are, how hard they work. They feel wonderful. they're not going to be able to go back and remember what you said unless you give it to them again. So you give it to them in a summary. You are still the most creative person on the team. Remember, you have great vocal variety. I want you to consider reorganizing your content so it's more effective, and keep up the creativity. Just give it to them again one more time so that they remember it. It's judging criteria in competition, yes, but more importantly than that, it's value added to the speaker. And then the last thing to do is leave with some kind of farewell, because this is a personal interaction in a public forum. You said your thanks at the beginning. Give them something to let them know that you care about them as a person on the way out the door. It's not just business. It's something else. It's something that lets them know you care. It's something that lets them know you want to see them speak again. That is my recipe. Now, when you deliver that recipe and you deliver it without notes, here's what I find happens. A speaker doesn't get to use notes. They can, but when a speaker starts to become an advanced speaker, you expect them not to use their notes. As soon as you get up to evaluate that person and you have notes that they didn't have, you're immediately inserting a wedge between you. There's something different about us. You're a speaker, I'm an evaluator. That's the sense. Whether we intend for it or not, that's the interpretation. You're going to go through your list of all the things I did wrong, or you're going to go through as many as you can in 3 minutes, and I had to do the best I could on the stage. So I get it, but it breaks down the whole goal. The goal is a personal relationship. Those notes risk not having that personal relationship. The notes are also a distraction, because you know in your head and in your heart how that speech affected you. You already know what they did well. You know the improvements that you want to recommend. You know the things that they did great at. Why have a sheet of paper that makes you feel like you have to say everything, or that challenges you to organize things on the fly, when you could just put that sheet aside and talk to them from the heart? Because even if you drop the format, even if you make a mistake and stammer and stumble all over yourself, the goal is not to sound like a great evaluator. The goal is to bring value to the speaker. If you embarrass yourself on stage, big deal. But if that speaker walks away with something valuable from you, that's a win, folks. That's the goal. That is evaluation culture. Notes can distract you. Notes can put a wedge between you and your speaker. And the worst part about notes, in my experience and from what I've seen, is that when you read from notes, you start to lose your overall organization yourself. Because you might have to flip a page, or you have to look back at something. You've got arrows that point you here and there. And as you follow that around, you start to interrupt your own organization. Sir? And that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with notes. I encourage you to use notes. If you have to pick between not adding value, and notes are what allows you to add value, bring out the notes, folks. Write them down, type them up, whatever you think is best. But when you want to challenge yourself to really challenge the speaker, I want to introduce you to the idea of leaving notes behind. For tonight's workshop, I'm going to challenge all of us to use no notes. Take notes, but when you come up to give your evaluation, leave those notes behind. Trust your instinct, trust your observation skills, trust your heart, and trust your intent to the speaker. That's my challenge to you. You don't ever have to do it again after tonight, and you don't have to volunteer tonight to do it. But if you want something new, if your palate is open to it, let's try that.